Greetings everyone, this is Late Night Chat with me as your host James Bond, and we're here with world-famous internet hacker Herpaul, and he's more than happy to give us a little insight on the 21st century phenomenon open source. Now Neil, can you tell our viewers what exactly is open source?
Yes, of course. Open source is the revolutionary movement where people and communities can all unite as one and help create a world of free opportunities and possibilities to all without limits through the wonderful creation of software.
Really sounds amazing. Why don't you give our viewers a little history on open source and where it came from?
Well, it all began back in the 80s where a gentleman named Richard Stallman came up with a plan and announced this plan in 1983. Richard Stallman believed that software should not be something people should pay for. Just as others who later began believing the same thing, such as Jimmy Wales, creator of the world's largest free encyclopedia in 2001, Wikipedia, or even Blake Ross and Ben Goodger, whom were responsible for the successful free internet browser Firefox back in 2004.
Incredible. From what I understand, software has become a world phenomenon. It is in more demand, and its development is even more sought after than back in the 20th century where everyone was looking for ways to develop steel. In a way, it seems as if software has impacted our world more intensely and has maybe even shown to be even more profitable in the 21st century than steel has in the 20th century. I understand open source is the movement for free software. Why do you think software should be free?
A prime example or reasoning I should say that would help people understand is basically one by Eben Moglen of the Software Freedom Law Center. Imagine you had to pay for mathematics. For all the things we use math for, from making calculations for building a house, or to making calculations for the costs of a company deciding on whether a new project would be profitable or not. Imagine you had to pay to use math for those purposes, and one would be limited to the amount of math they can afford to use. One can only imagine how limited we all would then become if this was true. Software holds the same properties. By forcing people to pay for software, we are limiting them.
I see, this does seem to be a problem, but in what other ways are people limited?
Oh, in many ways actually, but probably the most crucial would be freedom.
Freedom?
Yes, freedom. Having to pay for software and having its development for profit limits the freedom of the world to use that program, to run that program any way you like it, to study and change it. It limits you from helping your neighbor in developing it, or helping your community in benefiting from it. Freedom is always threatened, and it is something we all have and try our best to preserve it. Free software is a positive form of globalization. When open source first came about, it was only used in 4 continents around the world, and now it's used rigorously throughout 6.
Interesting. What other ways does free software impact us?
The existence of free software makes it hard for companies to monopolize. This stops them from taking over a market. In example, there are many people who don't know any other tools they can use to create a document rather than Microsoft Office Word or its incomparable alternative Notepad. Many people don't know any other options besides these. But thanks to the open source movement and our community reaching out to those who cannot afford Microsoft very expensive Office programs, we have a just as good alternative called OpenOffice. Free software opens doors and allows for people to reach out to one another from all over the world. It allows for people to lend a hand overseas. It connects people with communities and helps build relationships that have shown to better society. Take Wikipedia as an example. It's freely licensed, using wiki software, and is managed by volunteer staff. These volunteers are from all over the world, monitoring its operations 24/7. No company could ever afford to pay for such services, and because there are so many out there that also believe and understand the importance of free software, they are dedicated to helping the better community we all live for.
Unbelievable. I understand that Wikipedia is subject to anyone's information. It is said that anyone can just edit the information, and that article is now vandalized. Do you think Wikipedia will ever become more credible than maybe the world's largest library?
Yes, it is true that anyone can edit information in Wikipedia, but as I stated, it is monitored 24/7, and any changes that occur are reported and quickly proofread to make sure the changes are just. And to answer your question on whether Wikipedia is surpassing a library, well, I more than believe it will. Why? Well, because a library and its contents are vulnerable, it takes decades to create and only one day to destroy. Libraries are inconvenient in the sense that accessing their contents becomes a challenge to those across the world. Why have that struggle when one can just access that knowledge of information by just one click at the convenience of their homes? Wikipedia currently has 600,000 articles in English, over 2 million in different languages, and is rated amongst the top 50 visited websites, surpassing the New York Times. It gets 1.4 billion page views monthly. It is the future of information.
Incredible. What do you believe is the future of open source?
I believe open source can bring a revolutionary future as long as we change the route we currently are on, and make software free for everyone. By stopping the uses of software patents, by doing we can then afford to share the benefits with everyone. Putting an end to software patents will preserve scientific cooperation, and that is the real future of open source.
Neil, you've been wonderful and very informative. I hope everyone at home and all our millions of viewers will join our fight to put an end to software patents once and for all, not just for the sake of fighting monopolies, but for the sake of helping our world community.